Hello and welcome to my show, Shuvra Deb with you, with me, your host, Shuvra Deb. In this show, I will be discussing mental health with the aim of raising mental health awareness in our community and in society as a whole. The genesis of the show is my own pivotal life-changing experience of being in a Category 5 hurricane back in 2017. That experience led me to suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. I am hosting this show in order to let you know that you are not alone if something life-changing has happened to you from which you are struggling to heal. Shuvra Deb with you focuses on a range of topics relevant to mental health and to raising awareness of issues surrounding mental health. Hello everyone and welcome back to Shuvra Deb with you, where I help you to prioritise and look after your own mental health and that of those you love and care about. As you will know, and for those of you listening in for the first time, my show is about raising awareness around the topic of mental health. I want us all to be living in a society where looking after our own mental health and the mental health of those we love and care about is no longer stigmatised, as is currently the case in most of society. I want us all to live in a world where we no longer make that distinction between mental and physical health, and where each and every aspect of our health is considered in an inclusive and holistic way. Whilst my show is about raising awareness around the issue of mental health, I want to make it clear at the very outset that I'm not a mental health professional and I'm not a doctor. If you need to seek professional help, then I wholeheartedly encourage you to do that, whether that's by calling your local national mental health helpline, reaching out to a mental health charity, or seeing your GP or other medical doctor. Moving on to today's show, and further to your feedback that you would like to hear me speaking more, I am back today talking to you, just me. Today I am going to talk about using the upcoming summer break to prepare for something new. I will approach this topic from a range of perspectives, including how the summer break provides the perfect opportunity to reassess where we are at in our lives and to set new goals. If you're someone who wants to learn a new skill, a language, sport, or instrument, then what better time than the summer to get going on these things? And at the near halfway mark into the year, which is where we will be soon, it's a wonderful time to start cultivating healthy habits or to look at how we can all fall off the wagon on goals we have set for ourselves. As regards which, I will guide you on how to get back on the wagon of your goals, recommitting to healthy habits and to ambitions that may have dropped off since the start of the year for whatever reason. I'm also going to touch on how to use the summer to prepare for university, whether you're a student or a parent who is about to see your child go off to university for the first time. And then I'm going to round off with exploring some of the ways in which you can work towards finding your purpose in life. The summer break, or at least the hopefully slightly quieter period over the summer, provides a wonderful opportunity to take a step back and have a reset. But why should we do this? How is hitting reset beneficial? Well, it's worth doing and is beneficial for a number of reasons. If you set yourself goals at the end of last year or at the start of this year, the halfway point in the year is the perfect time to see where you are with your goals, to have a 6-month check-in. And if on having that check-in, we feel we're behind on where we wanted to be, then we can brainstorm and plan ways to get ahead. On the other hand, if we're ahead on our goals, we can go and have a little self-celebration. A self-celebration being where we celebrate our achievement and allow ourselves to feel good and proud of ourselves without needing validation from anyone else or evidence that we're doing well. If we know ourselves that we are doing well at something, then that's validation and evidence enough. Another benefit of having a reset through, for example, a break, either by way of travel or a staycation, depending on your budget and what you want to do with your time and money, another benefit of a reset is that it gets us out of our routine. That's right, me, the person who is always banging on about the benefits of having a routine and having practices and being productive. It's also great to break up those routines and practices and to mix things up a little from time to time. And that's because by taking those breaks, by having a change of scenery, we gain different perspectives. And when we return to our routines, we are refreshed and renewed with more energy. And I think in many cases, if we are open to it, with new insights. Taking breaks as a way of keeping things fresh doesn't just apply in the context of longer breaks and changes of scenery. I find that a quick 5 to 10 minute break every 45 to 60 minutes helps me to stay focused and to not go cross-eyed, for example, in front of my computer. But the right kind of break, a productive break, if you will, also helps to enhance mood and generate happiness. I've spoken on previous shows about the benefits of having a gratitude practice. So the next time you're feeling bored, overwhelmed, stuck, the next time you're just not in the zone, not feeling it, and you can't seem to get yourself out of that funk, try this gratitude practice. It won't take long, and you can do this practice anywhere at any time. All you need is a piece of paper and pen, or just use the Notes app on your phone if you don't have paper and pen to hand. Think about and write down 3 things, just 3 things for which you are grateful from the last 7 days or so. That's 3 things for which you are grateful from the last 7 days or so. And these things for which you are grateful don't have to be complex or lofty. Something as simple as a nutritious meal that you cooked and enjoyed eating is worthy of your gratitude. Or feeling grateful for the connection that you have with a friend with whom you spent time recently is also worthy of your gratitude. And just like that, by spending some time on focusing on things for which we are grateful, we give ourselves a little break and we jazz up our mindset and attitude a little. With all of that, if you're planning on using the summer to make some changes, for example, be that changes in your lifestyle so that you feel healthier and you feel a general sense of improvement in yourself, or whether it's to acquire a new skill such as learning a language or playing an instrument, then having a gratitude practice can help you with that too. But some of the changes that you want to make may be met with resistance from you. Let me say that again. Some of the changes that you want to make may be met with resistance from you. Let me expand on that. And here's just an example. You know that you don't currently eat healthy. You know that by eating a balanced, nutritious diet consisting of whole foods as opposed to processed foods will not only help you lose weight if that's what you feel you need, but that one change in your food intake will help you feel better. Feel less foggy in the morning, feel more energized during the day, and generally just feel better about yourself. You know all of this. You know this not because I'm saying it because other people may be saying it, but because there's scientific evidence and information out there telling you this. And you want it. You want to get healthy. You want to feel good about yourself again. Yet there is some resistance there, preventing you from taking the steps you need to take, stopping you from grabbing the, let's say, chicken and quinoa and broccoli off the shelves at the supermarket and instead dialing for that takeout. If you're in this loop, or you find yourself in this loop down the line, like me recently, and I'll come back to that later, you might fall off the good health wagon and start behaving in ways you don't want to behave. Ask yourself the following 3 questions. Firstly, do you believe deep down that you're going to fail? Do you believe that you're just not going to be able to stick to your healthy eating goals, either because you think you don't have the willpower and commitment, or because you have a lifestyle that makes routine difficult and you have to eat on the go, for example? And I'll come back to how these questions may be answered. The second question, are you feeling that you're not worthy of making positive changes in your life? Are you feeling that you're not worthy of making those positive changes in your life? Has something happened to you that has somehow squashed your self-worth and ultimately your self-respect? And it doesn't have to be just one thing that's happened to you. It could be many things or a series of events which accumulate and wear you down. Whether you realize it or not, that that's what might be going on with you. And thirdly, are you afraid of what other people might think about you or say to you or about you? You commit to this healthy new lifestyle. People see you making different, healthier food choices when you're out. They see you not drinking or drinking less. They become aware that you're going to the gym more. Is there a part of you that's afraid that if you fail, you'll be judged, laughed at, berated? Looking at how we can answer some of these blocks, these resistances. With the first one, you're worried you're going to fail. And starting the thing, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be being healthy. Starting the thing is just too overwhelming. Whether that's eating healthy or learning a new instrument. It doesn't matter. With any of these things, with any of these changes, we can fear failure. Well, guess what? I have news. You're right. You are going to fail. You are going to fail. But hold on, wait, before you switch off, anything that is worth doing will be difficult, in some part at least. Anything at which you succeed, you will experience failure along the way. There will be times and days when you just don't feel like maintaining your goals and when you're just not going to show up. And that's because you're not a robot, and sometimes you just need a break. There'll be moments and events on your trajectory when everything is going great. You're riding the crest of the wave of the surf, sunshine on your face, wind through your hair, and then bam! Out of nowhere, you're face down, face planting in the water, unable to get up, taking in the water, trying to breathe, clinging on, trying not to drown. As far as you see it, you've failed. But you see, what we often think of as failure, because we're in the moment and we can't see past the moment we're in, what we see as failure is more often than not a lesson than a full-on failure. It only becomes a failure if we remain face down in the water and we allow ourselves to take in the water and we allow ourselves to drown. The key is to get back up. When the tide goes out again and is low enough to give us a breather, to lift up our face, we get back up. And we wait for the next wave to come along, because it will, so we can ride that good old surf again. Those moments, face planting in the water, trying not to drown, are the moments from which we learn the lessons we need to learn in order to ride the next wave. Without those lessons, well, two things. Without those lessons, without those moments face down in the water, we learn nothing. And without those moments unable to breathe because we're face down in the water, how will we ever appreciate the beauty and joy of the moments when we are back on the board, riding the crest of the wave? It's likely that we won't. In fact, it's likely we'll take those moments of grace and of joy for granted, and we won't enjoy them as much as we could. So work with failure, accept failure, and then get back up. Looking at the second block, the resistance to taking the first step, if you're feeling like you are somehow not worthy, that's a big one, a very big one, and something that could probably take up an entire show. But for today, I will say one thing about this. If you are not able to commit to your goals, and you think, even if it's on a subconscious level, that you are somehow not worthy, then what you do is you choose yourself, and you show up for yourself. Instead of saying yes to going out for that drink or that evening out that you know you don't need, instead of flopping out on the couch with a bag of chips and a box set, show up for yourself. Say no to the drink, to the evening out. Go for a walk instead of hitting the couch. Just show up for yourself. And with the third, being concerned about other people's views, about us, or what they say to us. Well, when you get to the end of your life, I can guarantee you won't be thinking, oh, I wish my boss had praised me more. Oh, I wish I'd impressed those clients more. Oh, I wish I'd attracted more men or women my way. Nah, you're not going to care about any of that. Because at the end of it all, other people's views of you don't matter and is ultimately none of your business. So what if you miss your target? So what if you fail? You get back up and you go again and you do it for you. And if you still care about what other people think about you, chances are that the other people will actually admire you for getting back up and for showing up for yourself. But you see, you're not setting your goals for them. You're setting your goals for you. There are situations, however, where, with the best will in the world, we fall off the wagon of the goals we have set ourselves. And that's also the time to reassess, recalibrate, and maybe even reset our goals, be they existing ones or new ones. If you're like me and you like to set yourself a new goal fairly frequently, then I think mindset and decision-making has a lot to do with it. It's not just about willpower, as a friend said to me recently on the back of something her husband said to her. It's easy to set a goal, or a set of goals, and then when life gets tough or we lose our motivation for some other reason, it's all too easy to fall off the goal wagon. And that rings true for all of us, even people like me who I feel constantly tell you about how to set your goals, achieve your goals. I tell you about affirmations and I guide you through meditations. But even I can fall off the goal wagon. Even I can fall off the health wagon and the positive thinking wagon. I went through something quite upsetting about 5 weeks ago. But you see, before that, from pretty much the start of this year of 2023, I'd also been going through a tough time in most areas of my life. The kinds of difficulties you may expect to experience when changing your life, starting something entirely new in almost every aspect possible. So here I was, getting stressed, anxious. Yes, someone who hosts a show advising against getting stressed and anxious and on having tools to overcome stress and anxiety. Whilst I was following my practices in part, I was still getting stressed and anxious. Less than I would have without those practices, but nonetheless, the stress and anxiety were there. Then someone I really care about walked out of my life, and that hit me hard. Really hard, actually, harder than I thought it would. I spent the following 2 weeks buried under work and did nothing other than work, hit the gym, eat and sleep. And all of that was with purpose. I had a deadline and I needed to meet, and so I did the work. I met the deadline and it was a real success. And then, suddenly, I didn't have a deadline anymore. I didn't have the pressure of needing to meet a target other than various self-set targets that I had made for myself. And that's when things started to unravel just a little bit. For the following 3 weeks, I got consumed by and sucked into sadness. I stopped hitting the gym quite as regularly as I liked to. I stopped meditating quite as regularly as I liked to. I stopped going out for walks, not least because the humidity here in Cayman shot through the roof at about the same time. But that's an excuse. I can cope with the kind of humidity we have here, otherwise I wouldn't be here. I stopped eating healthily, and I started going out just a bit too much, at least what for me was a bit too much. And then, at the end of this 3-week period of what I considered to be self-indulgence and of feeling sad, I realized something. I realized that I had needed that time to sit with my sadness and to process it so that it could exit my system, leaving me feeling more upbeat and with the right energy for new things to enter my life. Perhaps my methods weren't the healthiest, but there it is. With the best will in the world, none of us are perfect, and none of us are capable of maintaining all of our healthy practices 100% of the time. Life just doesn't work that way. The way we react to life events just doesn't work that way. The way we react to our emotions just doesn't work that way. We are not robots after all. At the end of that cycle, that 3-week cycle, I lay in bed Sunday night, and I realized that if I carried on with the self-indulgence, with what for me was now becoming an unhealthy and unnecessary focus on the sadness, then I risked spiraling down into a pit of more sadness. It was then that I made a commitment to myself, lying there in bed, that I would do better at looking after myself. One of the purposes behind this podcast and everything else that I do is to offer some kind of wisdom, thoughts and guidance to you, the listeners, based on my experiences of things that I have gone through that I know many of you go through. So if I can't show up for myself, if I can't look after myself, how am I going to show up for anyone else, let alone you, the listeners? And here is what I think the issue is for a lot of us. Life happens, events happen, hearts get broken, small t traumas happen in our childhoods. We experience bereavement due to the loss of a loved one. We get fired. Someone we thought we could rely and depend on turns out to be anything but reliable or dependable. The list is actually kind of endless, isn't it, of all the crap we have to deal with. It happens to us all. We get dealt a rough hand and suddenly the game isn't so much fun anymore. And for so many of us, I think it's easy, or it can be easy, to absorb these events, these knockbacks, rejections, these events that cause us to feel sad. Easy to absorb them into our energy fields, to start becoming the thing, taking the energy from and of the event that caused us pain, the event leading to loss, the thing that still sometimes sucker punches us with overwhelming grief. But you see, we all have a choice. We are conscious beings, we all have choices. Yes, things happen that cause us pain, but do we really need to absorb each painful event into our energy field and allow that to cause us to suffer as a result? Do we need to allow our pain to cause us suffering? Or can we turn that pain into something else? I think once we have given ourselves an adequate amount of time to deal with the pain, to sit with the sadness, anguish, grief, whatever it is, and the adequate amount of time will vary from one person to another. And this is where we need to be guided by our own intuition on what that period of time is, and almost more importantly, on how we deal with that pain. Do we go to a therapist? Do we find a mentor? Do we call our local national mental health helpline? Do we reach out to a friend for support? A mental health check-in buddy, for example? Once we've spent what is for us the right amount of time dealing with our pain, not pushing it down, not pretending we're okay when we're not, once we've gone through the process, the time comes to come up for air. The time comes once again to start seeing the flowers instead of the thorns. But back to the goal-setting part of all of this. And when we get handed that not-so-great hand, which knocks us off, knocks us away from our targets. Lying in bed Sunday night, I decided to take back what I wanted out of my life. I decided to focus once again on what I am setting out to accomplish and how I go about getting there. One of the numerous things I recommitted to was my health. As I said before, if I'm not going to show up for myself, if I'm not going to take care of myself, my dad isn't going to do it for me. My doctor is not going to do it for me. Not even my therapist is going to do it for me. It's down to me to show up for myself and to take care of myself. In the same way, it is down to you to show up for yourselves and to take care of yourselves. After all, you put on your own oxygen mask on the plane before you assist anyone else with theirs. There's a good reason for that. The timing of my recommitment to my health was extremely handy. You've all heard me probably go on and on about F45 before, the gym that I go to. Another round of the F45 challenge started Monday. The challenge being a commitment to a healthy, balanced, nutritious eating plan and to attending as many classes as possible. F45 has their own heart rate monitor called the Lionheart. The results of your heart rate monitor determine how many points you get in any given class, and those points are shown on what's called a leaderboard. During this period where I had not been so focused on my workouts or on my health, I had started to come towards the bottom of that list on points. Sunday night, the night before the Monday morning class, having reset my goals and deciding in the first instance to focus on my health as a priority, I got up to go to the gym in the usual way, nothing out of the ordinary. But I must have had some kind of subconscious or subliminal commitment playing around in my mind, around my energy field, because having come towards the bottom on points for weeks on end, at the end of that Monday morning class, I was at the top, and it was a busy class, so I feel I did well. My friends even commented on it. It had been that long since I'd pulled something like that out the bag. And I tell you this not to brag. I may well be at the bottom again tomorrow. I have slowly been slipping down the leaderboard this week. I tell you this because, having reflected on that whole situation, it renewed my belief on the whole mind over matter theory. Reaching that stage of quiet desperation as I did Sunday night, really wanting to recommit to all of the great goals I had set myself in the previous few months, and then deciding that, come what may, beyond any and all excuses, that is exactly what I would do, I was able to refocus on those commitments to my goals and to bring my focus to what matters to me. It was a very productive Sunday night, needless to say. I had a really good night's sleep that night too. This then got me looking at research on the value of mind over matter, in a general context and also in the context of setting goals. At its simplest, the meaning of mind over matter is how one's perception of something can actually change the physical world and the outcomes that take place in the physical world. An article in Forbes magazine from around 4 years ago asserts the following: simply believing a physical reality about yourself can actually nudge the body in that direction, sometimes even more than actually being prone to the reality. And this is the fascinating bit. The researchers publishing in Nature Human Behavior undertook a study as follows, and I quote the Forbes article. They were interested in 2 areas: endurance during exercise and satiety during eating. For the endurance part, they did genetic testing on the participants to see whether they carried variants of a gene that make a person more or less prone to tiring easily. They also had people run on a treadmill to measure their endurance. Then, they randomly split the participants into 2 groups, telling one they had the gene variant that made them tire easily, and the other gene variant that's linked to endurance. The catch was that they'd randomly divided the participants into these 2 groups, so some were being given accurate results and others the exact opposite. When the participants ran on a treadmill again, their endurance changed measurably. Those who were told they had poor endurance genes couldn't run as long. They stopped 22 seconds sooner and had poorer lung capacity, and their bodies didn't rid themselves of carbon dioxide as effectively. Those who were told they had better endurance ran a bit longer, regardless of what genes they actually carried. The researchers saw similar results in their experiment with the hormone that determines feeling full when eating. The Forbes article states, when the participants ate a meal after hearing the true or false results of their genetic tests, their bodies performed differently from how they had been hearing the news. Those told they made more of the fullness hormone actually released 2.5 times more than they had before. And that was also reflected in how much they ate. It was really a much stronger and faster physiological satiety signal, and this mapped onto how much more full participants said they felt, said study author Bradley Turnwald in a press release. People who were told that they had the gene to produce less of the hormone didn't show a huge change in their eating or hormone levels. Turnwald concludes about the study. What was consistent in both studies was that those informed that they had the high-risk gene always had a worse outcome than those informed that they had the protective gene, even though we essentially drew out of a hat which information people received. So this study, albeit from around 4 years ago, tells us that mind over matter really is a thing. What we hold to be true in our minds truly can shape our physical reality, really can manifest in our lives. I'm not talking about, for example, waking up one day and truly believing that you are a wizard, for example. The reality that we are holding in our minds must come from a place of our actual lived reality. The lived reality of the participants in the experiment involving endurance during exercise and how full they felt when eating experienced a lived reality of being people who exercised and quite obviously people who ate. This then leads me to think that using our minds to change our physical reality is a bit like building a house. If you're a regular guy who wants to be, let's say, a teacher, whilst it won't happen for you overnight, you can, over time, build up to whatever aspect of teaching you want to pursue. You make the commitment to become a teacher in languages, for example. You work out what you need to do to get there, you work out if you're any good at it, and you work out if you enjoy it. And then you set yourself targets to get there. And in setting those targets, you can use your mind to manifest things into your physical reality. For example, you may decide to study a language and your commitment to the course is so strong that you finish it and you sit your exams and you sail through much quicker than the general anticipated time for completion. Fast forward now to more modern science and other more recent experiments and studies on mind over matter and goal setting. These studies show the effects of neuroplasticity and how goal setting can, quite literally, change the structure of our brains, making our brains optimized for achieving goals we have set for ourselves. And the science behind this is fascinating. You will have heard me speak on previous shows about the amygdala and how the amygdala loses its ability to regulate emotional responses in a post-traumatic stress disorder sufferer. According to recent research, the amygdala, along with the frontal lobe in our brain, plays a vital role in goal setting and in neuroplasticity. An article on Inc.com summarizes the findings of a study published in the journal Behavioral and Cognitive Neuroscience Reviews as follows. It says that firstly, when we set our sights on a goal, the part of the brain that creates emotional responses, that's the amygdala, evaluates the degree to which the goal is important to us. Secondly, the part of the brain that deals with problem solving, which is the frontal lobe, defines the specifics of what the goal entails. So the emotional response bit of our brain makes an assessment on how important we consider the goal to be. The problem-solving part of our brain tells us what we need to do to get to that goal. The third and final stage of this aspect of neuroplasticity is that the amygdala and the frontal lobe work together to keep us focused on and moving towards situations and behaviors that lead to the achievement of the goal, whilst in turn causing the brain to ignore situations and behaviors that don't help towards achieving the goal. As to the quality of the goal, that is, how challenging or easy the goal is, that also has an impact on the brain's response to it and how hard our brains will actually work to get us to the goal. Let me explain. The Inc.com article cites another article from the journal Psychological Bulletin, stating that in order to fully activate the amygdala and the frontal lobe to work together in goal setting, so that our brain conspires with us to make us more successful, we need to set ourselves challenging goals. The Psychological Bulletin states, in 90% of the studies, specific and challenging goals led to higher performance than easy goals, do your best goals, or no goals. Goals affect performance by directing attention, mobilizing effort, increasing persistence, and motivating strategy development. Goal setting is most likely to improve task performance when the goals are specific and sufficiently challenging. I take two things away from this interplay between the difficulty of the goal on the one hand and the ability of the brain to conspire in our favor to help us to achieve a difficult goal on the other hand. Neuroplasticity works to change the structure of our brain in a positive way in the context of goal setting, such that when we really care about the goal that we have set, the brain will work harder to help us achieve that goal. Therefore, the goal we are setting has to come from a place within us, from a place of true passion. I mean, ultimately, how many of you actually truly care what others want you to achieve? You may feel like you have to please others in order to maintain appearances, or perhaps you feel that you need to please others in order to be liked, which, by the way, you don't. But what is so great about this aspect of goal setting and neuroplasticity is that you get back your autonomy, you get back choice. And this is because the best way to achieve a difficult, challenging goal is to set yourself something difficult and challenging that matters to you. Not because someone set you a target or someone told you you should do something, but because there is something out there that you want for yourself. And I'm going to come back to this a little later in the context of finding our purpose in life, which is also something I've spoken about on previous shows. But I'm coming back to it again today because it's an important topic. But for now, just switching a little bit and turning to the topic of preparing for university and using the summer for this. If you're a student who is about to head to university for the first time, about to start your first year, you're probably really excited, but there's probably also a part of you that is at least a little bit scared. And if you are a bit scared, that's because you're heading out of your comfort zone and you're stepping into the unknown. The first thing to say with that is that the very fact that you've committed to stepping out of your comfort zone, to doing something that you haven't done so far, is worthy of congratulations and is something that you should be very proud about. Those of you who are off to university will no doubt want to get a good degree. I mean, of course you want to have fun when you're there, try new things, go to new places, as you should, but you're also probably very aware of the main purpose of being at uni, which is to get a degree. And I bet some of you are putting yourselves under pressure to achieve the best grade that you can possibly get. It's good that you want to do well, but what's not so good is the pressure that you might be putting yourselves under. Because that kind of pressure and the stress that arises from that kind of pressure, what it does to your brain is that it actually basically starts to shut it down. If you think about a pressure cooker, the lid is on tight. Everything is steaming away. There's a lot of heat and steam and noise coming out of this pressure cooker. But until someone takes the lid off, none of that pressure can be released. What happens when you are ruminating over something over and over again, such as the need to get a good grade on your degree, is that very thing that needs to function in order for you to get that degree, that's your brain, starts to get overwhelmed and distracted by the pressure and the stress. This then has the adverse effect, and producing a good result is likely not what happens. Instead of achieving the good results that you're hoping for, your brain gets so blocked by the fear and panic of not getting the good grades that you lose your ability to focus. And unless you take the lid off of all of that pressure, the situation is unlikely to improve. I don't want any of you to get to that stage. I don't want any of you to feel so much societal or parental or other pressure that you end up giving yourselves anxiety, insomnia, panic attacks, or something else. So here's what you do about it. You stop putting yourself under all that pressure. Easier said than done, perhaps, but if you stop thinking about what you can't do, about what could go wrong, and focus on what you can do and what could go right, then what you can do and what could go right will come way more easily to you. You see, something similar happened to me in my first year at university. I had put myself under so much pressure to get a good grade, all that pressure, by the way, coming from other people, not even from me, that I started struggling to eat and to sleep. That's right, there I was at uni. I was supposed to be having the time of my life as a first-year student, finally away from home, making new friends and doing new things, having new experiences. But instead, I was so focused, so hyper-focused on getting that good grade that I gave myself anxiety and insomnia. I was so anxious I couldn't eat a full meal as my throat kept closing up. And I was so worried about this grade that I couldn't sleep as my mind wouldn't switch off from all of the demons of what if. What if I don't get the grade? What if I don't get into law school? I was reading English at the time. What if I let my parents down? This went on for a few weeks from what I can recall, possibly longer, until I just plain got sick of it. I got tired and fed up with my seeming inability to live what I considered to be a normal life, or at least a life free from anxiety and insomnia, which is not too much to ask, especially at the age of 19, or at any age for that matter. So I went and spoke to one of my professors, one with whom I connected well, who liked me and who I liked. And what she said to me was simple, but at the same time profound in its simplicity. She told me to stop trying so hard. She told me to take the pressure off myself and to just let things be, to let things flow. The 19-year-old me was skeptical, and she could see this on my face. So she approached it from a different angle, saying to me, "Sure, some of your work is a bit hit and miss and not that great, but there's enough there to get the grade you want as long as you stop trying so hard." And with that simple piece of advice, something released in me. The lid came off from the pressure cooker. Just with that simple advice, which I took on board, I was, again, able to focus. I was able to eat again and sleep again without any of the distractions. And that advice really did serve me well, because in the end, I got the grade. So whilst it is great and commendable to have goals and aims in life, you're listening to someone who is constantly and consistently setting new goals for themselves, it's equally important to keep a check on our emotional and mental reactions to our goals. Don't put yourself under so much pressure that anxiety, fear, and panic become your reactions and they block you from attaining the thing that you desire so much. Take some of the pressure off, reminding yourself that sadness, fear, and anxiety only breed more of the same. It follows that being joyful and content in what we do is not only liberating, but those energies also provide a better platform from which we can perform, without the blocks of the more negative, lower vibration energies to which I have just referred. And if you're a parent listening whose child is just about to go off to university for the first time, I don't have kids, so I don't know what it feels like for you right now. But I'd guess that you may be feeling a bit anxious, a bit of trepidation, and some sadness at what may feel like the end of an era for the family you have worked so hard to build and to maintain. Coming at this from the perspective of someone who went off to university themselves, albeit some time ago, some of the most valuable things I took with me when I went off to uni was the value of knowing the benefits of healthy eating, of being able to cook my own meals, of knowing how to do my laundry, even if that means teaching your kids how to read the washing instruction symbols on their clothing, is time well spent. Things I would have gained benefit from would have been being taught finances, how to budget, really understanding the meaning of cutting your cloak according to your cloth, and then making sure there's some left over after the cloak has been cut. I would have loved a quick lesson on borrowing, credit, interest rates, rent, mortgages, how all of these things actually work in the real world. It's much nicer being taught these crucial life hacks by a caring parent than having to work it out for yourself. With all of that, moving on to my final thoughts for you for today. The last thing I want to offer you is something you can do after you've listened to this episode, and it goes back to a topic I've talked about on some of my previous shows, particularly my third show, Knowing Your True Purpose in Life. But before we get stuck into how to find and know your true purpose in life, I want you to ask yourself whether you are already in your purpose. Maybe you are already living your purpose, and if you are, I want to high-five you right here, right now. On the other hand, do you feel maybe stuck? Might you be feeling unfulfilled? Or perhaps you some kind of nagging feeling in your gut or somewhere else physical that something maybe isn't quite right. Or a feeling, an intuition that you don't even know what to call or name as yet. What this likely goes to in this context is authenticity. That nagging feeling in your gut of something just not feeling right as regards how you feel about your life or an aspect of it could well be a sign that you are not living authentically, being true to yourself. Or it might be that you're distracted. You find yourself frequently fantasizing about leading a different life, perhaps. Deepak Chopra gives an example of someone who has written to him and posed a question about fulfillment. The person asking the question describes his life, which on the face of it looks very satisfying and pleasing. He says he's a 35-year-old husband and father, has a 6-figure salary, but that he is dissatisfied in his career and that he feels lost and empty. The writer then goes on to say that when he tries to think of what he would rather be doing, he says his mind immediately goes to a vision of himself lying on a beach without a care in the world working on his tan. What is Chopra's response to this? His response is that the vision of the writer lying on the beach in paradise only reflects his wish for a vacation from his presently unsatisfying life. That vision, that image, the dream of lying around in the sun, not a care in the world, is not the writer's purpose or a vision of what will make his life fulfilling. It is a sign of his deep dissatisfaction of where he is in his life, and is reflective of his probably even deeper desire to run away from it all. So what can he do about that? How does he go from feeling so dissatisfied, feeling that he wants to run away, to getting to a place within himself of wanting to do or have something in his life that he finds meaningful? Chopra says that what he needs to do is to search deeper within himself, suggesting that he makes a solid list of his talents and passions. Chopra says, and I quote, "Think of the gifts you have that you can offer to make this a better world for your family and for everyone you touch in your life." That is quite a big task, but I invite you to do it anyway. It might be scary, but guess what? Just do it anyway, and it will be less scary because you'll have done it. That thing which is really scary before we do it is always way less scary when we have done the task anyway. And if you're like me and you like making lists, then you'll like this, and it's simple. Make a list of what you are good at. And next to that list, make another list of what you enjoy doing. You don't have to make these lists right now or in the next 5 minutes. If you're so inclined and it feels like the right thing for you, rather than rushing to make these lists in a short time frame of, say, just 5 minutes, take 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years, if that suits you better. You really can take your time adding to the lists, taking things off of them as and when that feels right to you. To get you started, though, hopefully to inspire you. For example, are you good at cooking or at teaching? And do you enjoy spending time with children? You may feel that you'll be a great cookery teacher. Or are you good at science and you like cats or dogs? Then maybe some kind of work in an animal shelter or vet's clinic is for you. The wonderful thing about finding out these small things about your likes, your dislikes, your qualities, your characteristics is, taking the cats, dogs and science as the example, the wonderful thing about this is you don't need to walk out of your job or your life or start fantasizing about lying around on a beach working on your tan. You can have both. If we approach the issue of finding our purpose in life with a negative mindset, with a mindset and thought pattern of, oh, I don't know what I'm good at, or I don't know what I like, or I'm never going to find my purpose. If you approach anything with that mindset, then you have already told yourself what is going to happen. You have already set yourself a self-limiting belief and have set yourself up for a self-fulfilling prophecy. You've already carved out the future position that you're not going to find your purpose. The saying, where intention goes, energy flows, is so true. Tell yourself you won't do something or that you are unable to do something, and that is exactly what the follow-through will be. So instead, I invite you to show up for yourself and to have an abundance mindset. I want you to activate abundance. What I mean by activating abundance is almost a rewiring of our brains. The human brain hasn't quite caught up with modern life yet, in many ways. But the way in which that's relevant for abundance activation and where the human brain hasn't quite caught up is our brains are hardwired, preloaded, if you like, to keep us alive, to fight the saber-toothed cat or whatever animal or situation that as prehistoric mammals we would be fighting against or dealing with. Our brains are pre-wired to live in a mode of fear and panic. And that, in this modern world, mostly translates into a lack mentality. That if I do this, I won't have enough of that mentality. Or the doubt and fear in the back of our minds that resources are limited and will run out, whether that's money, jobs, food, homes, whatever it might be. A lack mentality is the opposite of the abundance mindset that I'm inviting you to embrace. And remember what I said before about mind over matter or neuroplasticity. What we think, we manifest. We think and see lack in the world. Guess what? It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. We see abundance and plenty in the world, and guess what? We're on the right path to a much better self-fulfilling prophecy. And this all happens to us, the negative side, because our brains are hardwired to look for negative things in order to activate survival mode, in order to keep us alive. Translating that into the modern world, we instinctively look for the negative in almost every situation. And it's kind of not our fault. Let's take an example, and I use a personal one here. You get some great news that you've got the overseas job that you applied for. Your initial reaction is a yelp of excitement and joy, and you feel happy. But your next most immediate thought is, oh my gosh, what if I mess up? What if I get over to the new country and I hate it there? What if they hate me? What if I have to come back? What if it doesn't work out? What if? And there you have it, the what if it doesn't work out mindset. How many of you want to bet with me that the what if it doesn't work out mindset has stopped hundreds of thousands, maybe millions, maybe even billions of people from chasing a dream, from actioning a business plan, from doing something that they are passionate about? So, to stop this self-limiting characteristic, this what if it doesn't work out mindset, we need to activate abundance. Now, you may already be activating abundance, and you may already have an abundance mindset. For example, you are already activating an abundance mindset if you're someone who is grateful for what you already have and you don't resent others' successes. If you actively celebrate other people's successes and achievements whilst being grateful for what you have, then you are already in your abundance mindset. Another sign that you are in a state of abundance is that you help others, whether that's by giving your time to a worthwhile cause or giving your time to a friend, or whether that's by giving away some of your belongings which you consider you no longer need. By giving of ourselves, we believe that there is enough to go around, which there is, and we are not stuck in the opposite of an abundance mindset, that being the scarcity mindset. And if you're listening and thinking, I'm not quite there yet, I'm not quite in my activation of abundance yet, then let's get you there. How do we get there? How do we activate abundance? Some of the things I've already discussed will help us get there, the main one being to practice gratitude and to be grateful for what is already in our lives. Whether that's by actively making lists of things for which we're grateful, or whether that's noticing the simple things in life and smiling at them. Some of the simple things for which we may be grateful include reading a good book, taking that first lick of ice cream before it melts off the cone, or having a dishwasher. I've lived in houses without dishwashers and spent a lot of time with very dry skin on my hands and just wanting to cry because of the lack of dishwasher. So now I am very grateful for my dishwasher. Getting creative can also activate abundance. By creating something, you are showing yourself, you are training your brain that there is abundance, that there are new things to be made, to be discovered. The very act of making something out of nothing or making something out of raw materials of whatever description is evidence of abundance. It is evidence of abundance because you are participating in the act of creating something, showing yourself that there are new things to be made and to be discovered in the world. Another way of activating abundance is to get your friends involved, get your family involved. By getting your buddies and family members involved, you'll be spreading your newfound enthusiasm and joy to them, which is going to help them. And you'll be sharing your new interests and talents with them, which may have the effect of contagion, inspiring them to do the same thing for themselves, to activate their abundance, to find their purpose. If cooking is your thing, start experimenting with your new recipes on your family and friends. Who doesn't love free food? I know I do. Well, food generally, it doesn't have to be free. And if animals are your thing, offer to cat sit or dog sit for friends and family or the wider community whilst they're away on vacation. So you've stepped closer to living in your authenticity, your purpose. You've stepped away from people pleasing. You've made your lists of what you're good at and what you enjoy doing. You have a gratitude practice, and you've taken some of the other steps I've spoken about and started to activate abundance. What next? Next, you create a plan. If you're at the stage of feeling ready to start your side hustle, for example, sit down and plan it out. There's a great deal of satisfaction to be had in committing to paper the finer details of where you want something to go. Make yourself a mini business plan of how your side hustle might look. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant or life-changing, and there are plenty of templates available online to help you with this. The plan you come up with may be something you never use, but that doesn't matter. The very act of putting that plan together gives you the experience of having done it. So if you ever do go big on your side hustle and it becomes your main hustle, putting that more important business plan together will come way more naturally to you. You'll have been inspired by your previous plans. Plus, by putting something down on paper, even by saying something out loud, there's very clear and important messaging in that. You are telling the universe, spirit, God, whomever it is for you, you are telling them what you want. Once you have put that intention out there, events will conspire to bring your positive desires to fruition at a time that's right for you, whether you realize it or not. In concluding, today I have talked to you about the benefits of having a reset, of setting yourself goals, and of some of the things that you can do when you fall off the wagon with your goals. I've also spoken about using the summer to prepare for university, whether you're a student or a parent. And finally, I've given you some tools on how you can find your purpose in life, how you can live from a place of authenticity. Because we all deserve to fulfill our purpose. We all deserve to be authentic and to live our best lives. And if you're listening here live on the radio, you can find me here every Thursday at 2 p.m. on Bobo 89.1 FM. If you're on my podcast, you will have found me either through Spotify, Apple, Google, or any of the other platforms where my podcast is available, which is called Shuvra Deb With You. The shows go out 6 a.m. every Tuesday, EST. Tune in and listen out. Thank you for listening. Bye for now. The Shuvra Deb With You podcast is inspired and brought to you by Shuvra Deb, copyright Shuvra Deb. Thank you all so much for tuning in and for listening to Shuvra Deb With You. And please do tune in every Thursday at 2 p.m. on Bobo FM 89.1 for more topics related to and relevant to mental health. If any of you would like to reach out to me directly about any of the issues I've discussed, please do email me at shuvradeb82@gmail.com. That's spelt SHUVRADEB, the numbers 82 @gmail.com. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening.